Hey there, everybody. My name is Shane. I run the events over at TEN Capital Network. I want to thank you all for joining us. We have an amazing event ahead of us today, a bunch of great presentations. With that, I want to bring up our CEO, Hall Martin, as well as our special guest from Mid-Atlantic Bio Angels, and I'm going to invite them up now. As we're waiting for them to join us, please don't forget to put any questions you have in either the chat box or the Q&A box, and we'll get to those when we can. And also don't forget to answer the poll at the end of each of our presentations today. With that, I'll let Hall take it away.
Thanks, Shane. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Today we have a great panelist with us, Yaniv Sneor of the Mid-Atlantic Bio Angel Network, one of the premier angel networks in the U.S. for life science deals. I want to thank Yaniv for joining us here on the panel today. And afterwards, we're going to have several pitches, and then we'll have breakout rooms at the end. If you're a startup looking to raise funding, we'll have a breakout room to tell you more about how we work. And with that, let me bring up Yaniv Sneor and have Yaniv kick off with the first few minutes for about what he's doing there. Yaniv?
Thank you so much for having me, Hal. Appreciate it, the introduction, and appreciate the invitation. So today, actually, before we get involved with the webinar, there's a subject that I keep repeating every time I see companies that want to pitch to me in various events, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to present it here today. So if I may, I'm going to share my screen and go into a little bit of a presentation, and then I'll leave some time at the end, so if people have any questions about it, I'll be happy to discuss it as well. So today I want to really discuss the relationship between the exit and your funding path. And I know I get a lot of questions about, we're looking for this kind of money, can you provide it to us, etc. And I ask the companies, well, tell me more about how much money you're going to need. And so this is the reason why I ask these questions, and I'd like people to understand sort of the background behind it. So first of all, a little bit of background about our group. We are one of the only angel groups in the world that invest exclusively in the life sciences. We were formed in 2012. We invest only in therapeutics, devices, diagnostics, and digital health. We meet and screen monthly, except in the summer. We are based in New York, but at this point, our membership has grown to be worldwide, and our investments are also worldwide. And I'll discuss the kind of investments we make, what we call angel-only opportunities, and the range, which is less than $25 million or so. And we, each group, we approximately put in between $250,000 to $1 million per round. We have about 60 members, and we're growing at a nice pace. A lot of domain expertise. Many of our members work for pharma or consultants, or they're MDs, etc. They're all obviously accredited, and we have individual as well as corporate members. And we're very selective. Of every 100 applications that we receive, we invest in about 2 or fewer applications. So it's quite a process, and we're pretty selective in that. We invest as individuals, but also we've created internal funds that we call pools that are only for our members. And then we created this thing called a sidecar fund, which is a co-investment fund for people who either don't have the time or expertise to be members, but want to somehow co-invest with us. They can do so through the sidecar fund. In addition to apply or to be heard through us for funding, we have something called First Pitch Life Science, which is basically an event that we do now virtually through Zoom, where companies can come in and pitch for feedback. And you can apply for either funding or to pitch for feedback on our website, bioangels.net. So remember that. Any questions, always go to the website. You'll find the answers there. So let's talk about investors and exits. Investors will only invest if they see a return on their investment, and that return will come in the form of an exit. This is the sort of a chart of exits. First of all, let's go from the bottom and go up. So lifestyle company means a company that you create, which you'll be providing with, upon retirement to your children and their grandchildren, and nobody's going to buy them in the future. It could provide you and your family with a wonderful income, but there's not going to be an exit. And because of that, there's no interest for the investors. Other companies come to us and say, hey, in about a year or so, we're going to start licensing out all of our applications to different companies, etc. However, if you think about it, you're going to get a small upfront when you do a licensing deal, and then you have to wait as an investor for that licensee to commercialize this. And, you know, if successful, then you're going to get money down the road from royalties, which could take many, many years. So that risk and that low potential ROI and that very far away ROI make this a very limited interest thing for investors. So that brings us to the top two, which are IPOs and M&A. And everybody that I meet with says, oh, we're going to IPO in 2 years or whatever it is. But the problem is IPO windows, as many people know, sometimes are open and sometimes are closed, meaning at times the industry or the market is more open for companies to IPO, and at others they're not. They take a lot of money and other things to reach that stage. And the reality is, if you're doing something really, really attractive, somebody's going to buy you before you get too expensive. So our preference, and many other investors as well, but not exclusive, but this is, so I'm talking about our preference especially, is for M&A. So why would somebody want to buy you? If you are the best solution in an attractive market, which is an offensive play by the acquirer, or your solution is taking away market share from them because you're basically, you know, the salespeople begin to complain that they're losing sales to you, or potentially could, or this acquirer is somebody who wants to enter in the market, or they want to lead the market, and you have the right technology solution to do that. Or they think that they are the leader right now, but they don't want to give up that position. Again, a good reason why they'd want to buy you. And the timing of that acquisition, well, as soon as you have enough proof of any of the above, they'll want to buy you. If somebody wants to preempt somebody else from acquiring it, they want to be, you know, the first to get you before there's a bidding war, or before somebody else gets their hand on you, then they'll do that. And definitely they want to buy you before you get too expensive by going public. Some companies are going to exit early and others will exit later. The ones who will exit early, most likely, are the ones that are addressing markets that are very attractive for those company potential acquirers. And the solution is also very attractive for a number of reasons. If you could convince people, or it's easily implied that adoption is going to be easy, or that is going to be obvious, then people would want to acquire you early. And obviously, if it's very much differentiated. The later exits are most likely going to happen if you're one of those companies that are entering a competitive market where there are a lot of companies, a lot of solutions. The IP may not be as strong because, you know, yours is just a little bit different from others, but you're very close. Maybe the regulatory path is complex for you. Maybe the trials are long. You just need a lot more data. So those are things that could potentially lead to a later exit. And in life science, we sort of divide things into two, the therapeutics and then the all else for us, the device diagnostics and digital health. In therapeutics, you need to show either preclinical or clinical data. The more attractive area you're in, you'll have to show less data, and you might be able to exit earlier. So the question is always how much data and at what phase you can exit. For devices, diagnostic, digital health, you're going to have to show some market traction. You're going to have to show that there is adoption. And the question is how much of that adoption. You'll probably need regulatory approval in at least the US or EU to show that you are able to sell that product in that market. You have to prove manufacturing and the fact that it can be made inexpensively, made well, consistently, and inexpensively once you grow in terms of manufacturing, and it can be scaled up so that it's not just the one-offs. And then you'll have to create a whole organization structure for all of that. It means a sales force and all that kind of stuff, which costs money, takes time. So what I want people to take away from this is you should figure out where you fit. Are you an early differentiated company in an attractive market, attractive field, or are you more of a late entrant in a crowded field with something that is just incrementally better? Is your IP very broad or is it narrow? You know, how are the comps showing you? In terms of the M&A, are most comps or most companies like yours acquired early in earlier stages, or are they acquired at late stages? So these are the kind of things that you need to find out. So speak to potential acquirers early. The earlier, the better. You don't have to give them confidential information, but find out from them what would they require from you at the minimum in terms of data and stage, et cetera, before they would consider an acquisition. And then add a margin to it, because they're always going to come back to you and ask for more, right? And then figure out the cost to create all that proof in terms of adoption, data, et cetera, and again, with some margin. And then from that, how much will all that take in terms of time? And look at the comps in terms of dollars and stages for the exits. From that, you want to create your financial path to exit. Figure out the milestones, the time, and the dollars to exit. What's the total amount that you will need? And then figure out the milestones, which are inflection points, right, where your valuation will grow, and potentially where you could potentially exit, and the size of each round. Now, all of this is why? Because there are different sources of money. VCs and angels are two of the main sources that you would encounter, but they are very different funding sources. So VCs create large funds, hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. When you have that size of a fund, you deploy money in large amounts, tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars. The funds have a limited life, and it's important to understand that, because the end, when the fund closes, after its usually 10-year life, they will want to liquidate anything that's still open, which means if you're not done yet, if you're not at an exit, they will force an exit, because the next point is VCs have controlling interest in your company, and most would invest actually at a later stage. And, you know, for us, the difference is that they dilute early investors very much and take liquidation preferences, which means they would get paid before even you get paid and other investors get paid. In contrast, angels invest as individuals or funds, because sometimes we have both. We put in anywhere from $250,000 to $1 million per round per group, and we like to invest together in what we call a syndicated round. And in life sciences, those rounds are usually around $5 million. And we've seen companies raise maybe 4 or 5 syndicated rounds in different milestones, up to $20 or $25 million in this field. We don't have expiration in terms of time on our fund, and we don't have controlling interest in your company, so nobody can force you to sell at any specific time, and you keep control of your company at the entire stage. So whenever I meet with companies and they say we need some funding to get to an exit, my question is, how much will you need in total to reach that exit? And this is why I ask that question. So thank you so much for the opportunity to present, and I would be happy to answer any questions at this point.
Thank you, Yaniv. My first question is, intellectual property seems to be a critical factor in this stage, and I rarely see just 1 or 2 patents up there. I usually see 10, 15, 20 with a layered approach. What's your take on patents as far as complexity goes?
It's really the depth and defensibility of the patents is what we're looking for. And ultimately, when you have somebody who acquires a company, they acquire their intellectual property because they want to be able to practice those inventions and those opportunities in the future. So they are incredibly important.
Great. Well, when I hear investors talk about therapeutic companies and they start talking about the customer, what I found is they're not talking about the patient that's going to use the therapy. They're actually talking about the pharma company that's going to buy the startup. And how much do you know about your customer means how much you know about the pharma company. What's your take on that?
I think you need to really know both. You know, when even in our questionnaire, we ask who are all the beneficiaries for this technology. Because you never know. I mean, for instance, if a technology, if an opportunity is one that would cause the fact that the interaction with doctors would be better, and that they perhaps even a new line of income for them, then there is yet another party in this whole in the whole relationship that wants to make money and will force and will help create adoption in the field. So you want to understand all of the parties that benefit from a technology. from this introduction and then understand it. And that's part of the reason why those potential acquirers would want to acquire it.
With medical devices, we're often looking at the impact on the physician. That seems to be the critical path to success, is empowering the physician to be better without changing their behavior too much. How much do you put behind the physician-centric view of a medical device success?
So the medical device success depends a lot on adoption. And so you want to see the ease of adoption of that technology in the marketplace. You want to see if it's easy for physicians, how much training is going to be done? Do they now want to begin to use this procedure and this device as opposed to what has been done until then? It is very important in the US that we figure out who's going to pay for it and which code is it going to fall under, and and what kind of revenue model will it create for the doctor? If you can show all of these in a positive way, there's going to be a good reason for somebody to acquire this company.
Great. My last question is, when dealing with medical devices as well, we often hear about the hospital procurement cycle. And that's one question investors often ask a startup is, how well do you know it and how are you fitting into it? How would you describe that situation?
It's critical, actually, because you need to understand if your product is going to be adopted by the hospitals and what's going to take for that to happen. It's not just about creating a wonderful device that could potentially change the standard of care. The standard of care changes by, hospitals and clinics, et cetera, choosing to adopt this, doctors choosing to use this procedure or device. So you really do need to understand that. You need to understand the cycle that it takes, how long it will take, under what budget they'll be able to buy it, who makes the recommendation to buy in the hospital. And so that if you have good answers to that and you understand it well, you have a good chance of making a good impression on us. And and if not, it will make it more difficult for us to want to get behind this technology.
Great. That answers my questions. Thank you so much for today. And with that, let's bring up our first presenter.
Okay, great. Good. All right. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Hall. It's my pleasure to be with you all today. I'm Raj Kekar, and I wanted to share with you about our project, our product, which is CleanPap. CleanPap is for better, safer cleaning for CPAP supplies. A little bit about my background. I have been in the sleep disorders field for about 20 years now, and so have a lot of experience in sleep health and sleep apnea and these types of sleep problems. And I got my training at Stanford in their renowned sleep disorders center there, so that was a really great experience for me. And so we have created a product called CleanPap, which is to help people who use CPAP, which there are millions around the world who are using CPAP for management of sleep apnea. And it's a breathing device which helps them to breathe normally and comfortably while they're sleeping. And sleep apnea itself is a very common sleep problem. It's also a very serious sleep problem, which can lead to adverse health effects, including heart attacks, strokes, and heart disease if left untreated. So CPAP is a very common treatment for sleep apnea. And so we have created a product to help people who use CPAP to keep their parts for their CPAP, which are the mask, the tubing, the water chamber, clean. And that's a very important part of the treatment. The market for sleep problems continues to increase as there's more and more awareness of sleep problems and the presence of them, which are, again, very common. We expect the market for sleep apnea in the United States alone to be 70 million around this time, and it just continues to grow about 10% per year on the number of people who are being diagnosed. And there's a large number who remain undiagnosed. We expect that number to increase over time. And worldwide, it's closer to 1 billion people who may be affected by sleep apnea. The problem that we're trying to address is that the CPAP equipment which people use, including the mask, the tubing, and the water chamber inside the device, need to be cleaned on a regular basis to prevent contamination or buildup of bacteria, virus, molds, these types of problems. And so we want to make sure it remains clean and easy for use. Currently, the manufacturer's recommendations have been for the last many years is hand washing these parts on a daily basis. That's actually what they say in their manual, user manual, is to wash these parts on a daily basis. That's very time consuming and inconvenient for most people because it does take time to clean these parts. And it's not very simple and easy, especially when it comes to the tubing, which is a 6-foot long tubing, to get into the inside of that and clean it out. So that has become a problem for people. And this problem was first addressed about 12 years ago. So in the early 2010s, there was a company called SoClean, which came around that time. And that is still what we consider the main competitor at this point. They're the market leader since that time. They developed a product to clean these CPAP supplies. Their product uses ozone, which is basically blowing ozone air through the tube to the mask to help essentially sanitize it. I think clean is an overstatement, but it's essentially sanitizing the equipment with the ozone air. Another device which came along in the last few years is a UV light, again, sanitizer, which uses UV light to disinfect the parts, made by a company called React Health. And so there have been problems with these devices, and one of the biggest problems was the methods of cleaning. The ozone has been shown it's a chemical compound which is actually harmful to humans at levels that are higher than what's considered safe. And most of these cleaners, CPAP cleaners, including SoClean, have been shown to use levels that are higher than what's considered safe for human exposure. And so that can lead to respiratory problems, headaches, coughing, asthma attacks, and it's also been shown to discolor the masks. And so clearly there's some risks involved there. And SoClean to date has not received FDA approval because of these reasons. And in fact, the FDA warns against using them. And a step further is that ResMed, which is a major manufacturer, one of these of the CPAP devices, has said that anybody that uses an ozone CPAP cleaner with their device will void the warranty because they know it does damage to the device. So that's another consideration. And again, so here you can see it says for ozone to be effective in destroying harmful bacteria, it has to be present at a concentration above levels considered safe for humans. So that's the problem with these cleaners that are currently on the market. Similarly, the UV light cleaners have been shown to have some issues where they don't completely actually clean the parts effectively because the light doesn't reach the different parts, which are the insides, especially like of the tubing and other areas. So they're also not completely effective. And so another major storyline is that there have been huge recalls in the CPAP devices by another major manufacturer, Philips. Philips Respironics had over 4 million CPAPs recalled in the last several years, and that number is climbing every year. They have more recalls. They've just had one problem after another. But their big recall was due to wearing down or breakdown of some of the foam material inside their devices, and they traced that back to people who are using these ozone cleaners as the most likely cause for that problem. So that was something that was really made a lot of news 3 years ago, and continues to be in the news as far as both Philips Philips sued SoClean because of this issue that it was creating with their devices, and then SoClean has now countersued Philips. So they're very busy these days. And so that's created an opportunity for us, for CleanPap. And CleanPap has been in the works for the last few years. We've gone through a couple of iterations with prototypes. We have had 2 prototypes to continue to improve. And now we have a product that we feel is going to be ready for market this year. And our product, it looks like this. It's very neat and clean, very professional, and a nice appealing look to it. We do have a patent on the design as well. and that patent has been approved here in the US. We also have the ability to clean all of the parts, including the mask, the tubing, and the water chamber on our device. And it actually uses mild soap and water. So it's good old-fashioned soap and water, which you can't beat it. There's nothing better than that to actually clean the parts. And it can be done every day if somebody so chooses. They can wash them every day, and there's really no actual significant effort involved in doing so. So that's kind of what we have created. Is an automated device, and it has a very nice design. We've also made it so that external plumbing is not required to use it. It can essentially sit on the countertop, whether it's in the bathroom next to the sink or maybe in the kitchen if that's a preferred location for it. And this is a little bit of a breakdown of our equipment here, so you can see what it looks like. There are the different parts there, and we have a reservoir at the bottom. We have the chamber at the top, which holds the different parts, which comes out as a tray to load the different parts. And of course, there are buttons and display LED, which shows which stage of the cycle you're in and kind of where things are. Again, this is a picture rendering of the device sitting there by the sink in the bathroom. So we wanted to take a small footprint so it doesn't take much space and it fits in nicely in whichever environment we want to place it. And we actually did a market research with 100 of our patients, and we found that many of them gave very helpful feedback, which actually helped us to improve our design from initial designs. So we were able to provide better satisfaction and peace of mind in using the device. And so that's helped us a lot. Our device won't require any special 510K approval to be on the market, and so that will reduce some of the challenges. And I do believe we do plan to apply for approval for if anybody wants to use their HSA or FSA for purchasing the device, we'll apply for that as well. And so our plan to go to market is essentially to start with a market price of $399 per unit. That's essentially what the price was for SoClean 10 years ago. So I don't think that's too much of a reach. I think we can do that, especially since our product seems to be superior to the other products that are available today, especially with the challenges they're having. And as I mentioned previously, the SoClean is currently selling for $349 per unit, and they've had tons of sales over the years. And so that's kind of where we want to start. We do want to go direct to consumer as much as possible because we feel like this is something that consumers can purchase. They don't need a prescription to buy it, and that way we can really reach the most people. We expect a good gross margin on the product. If we can keep our cost down to $150 per unit, then we should be doing very well at that point. This is just a brief slide about our team. I'm the founder, Raj Kakar, and we have our CFO, John Autry, who's helped us on the project. And then, of course, we have an engineering team with Tangent Design and our advisors, and so including Hall with our group here. So we're really, really appreciative of all the support and help we're getting. We are looking for some additional help to continue to build our team and our company. And so marketing and advertising is one area of focus. We also are looking to further develop sales team, and of course, continue to build on our financial and business team and modeling. This is a little bit about our analysis and forecast for the product. So we hope to ramp up sales within the first 5 years to be successful. Really, in the first couple of years, you can see from these graphs, the revenue and net profits really start to take off right from the start. But really, by year 3, we're doing pretty good, and that there's a return on profit to the investors in a very timely manner. Here's again a return on investment graph, which shows some of that net profit return on investment forecasting. And so we do anticipate that we can be in the $10 million plus range of net profits by year 5. And so we're looking for some investors who are interested in investing in our product. We currently are trying to raise 2 million. We have 250,000 raised already by friends and family, and we're continuing to reach out to them as well. And we're looking for, if we can find a lead investor, that would be very helpful and allow us to continue to develop our product. The funds are mainly to be used for completing the design and then the engineering, so that we can actually bring the final product to market. And we would hope to do that this year. And so that's kind of where we are. And so I see that we may be running on time. So this is just a few other slides just to show kind of what the return is kind of on the investment is meant to be. And again, here's just a wrap up. So thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate it. And I'll take any questions. If there are one or two questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Sure. If those in the audience have questions, please post them in the chat box and we'll call them out. Dr. Carr, my first question is, what's your channel to market initially? What are we going to be doing? Direct to consumer? Are we going to be doing direct sales? What do you think it will be?
Yeah, I think we're going to try to go to do both, but really we'll start with direct consumer initially by rolling out a marketing campaign, digital, online, maybe also some paper advertising, so that way we can reach more consumers in an effective manner. And then we may also try to do some marketing to doctors and other organizations that are in the CPAP business.
Great. What's the size of the overall market? What's the total available market here?
Total available market, that's a good question. And so basically we have, essentially about 70 million people here in the US that have sleep apnea and have been diagnosed and are being treated. That number is closer to about 30 million. So about 30 million people who are actually on treatment at this time. So that's essentially the market we're reaching for, and hope to see that grow.
And aside from the patent, what moat have you built around the product? What prevents other people from copying it?
Yeah, so it's really the patent and then the branding. We've also used this branding to try to set ourselves apart, and so we are trying to kind of further, as we further finish up the design and engineering, we do plan to take some more design elements to create more patents, more patents on the design, as that still is not quite completed. So we feel like there's room for further patent development on the design.
Great. My final question is, what's the exit here? Who would buy you and for how much?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, it may be a company that's, in this sleep field that may have some interest. And so that's an option for buyout. And assuming, we go 5 years, then it's possible that we may be able to sell for anywhere from 10 to 20 million, just depending on how things are going at that point. And it may even go more than that. But I do think that that's a reasonable area to project based on our estimates at this time.
Great. Thank you so much. We're out of time. I appreciate the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hall. I appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thanks. And we'll bring up our next presenter and we'll kick off in just a moment.
Okay, thanks, Hall. Hi, everyone. My name is John Matthews. I'm the CEO of Inkwell Health, and we sell a cutting-edge temporary tattoo technology that monitors orthopedic patients after surgery. Couple quick things. Our platform is a medical device. It's a Class 1 device in the US. We have done all the work and we're cleared for use in the US. We've spent much of 2023 beta testing the system at 2 large orthopedic centers in Michigan, and our knee module is now on the market and generating revenue. We have 3 patents covering our technology at the PCT stage, which we can talk about later. What you might know that right now, about 20% of knee surgeries are done in an outpatient setting. That's expected to grow to 60% over the next couple of years. What you might not know is that there's a major shortage of physical therapists to take care of those patients, and orthopedic surgeons don't get paid for 3 months after surgery. And the problem's only going to get worse. So what if we had medical grade data to monitor how someone's recovering from home? We can use that data to personalize their recovery plan, keep them safe. And what if we could actually help clinicians make more money in the process? Well, introducing you to the Inkwell Health knee module that, again, is on the market in the US. You can see on the left, it involves a temporary tattoo that the orthopedic surgeon puts on after surgery. It's very easy, takes 30 seconds to put it on. The patient has an app on their phone that monitors that tattoo for swelling, range of motion, temperature changes, as well as other things like pain and activity. And we can show the patient, the clinician, how they're doing. We can send critical alerts to clinicians if there's a problem or if they're off track. We can help that patient reach their recovery goals. The best part is there are reimbursement codes for remote therapeutic monitoring in the US. The average reimbursement is about $325 per patient. So that means an average clinic in the US can make about over $240,000 by using our technology. In addition, we can help them save hundreds of thousands of dollars because some of the biggest issues they face are losing patients or patients missing appointments. An average clinic loses about $280,000 because of that every year. And it's a pretty significant market. Globally, it's a $7.6 billion, just knees is a $7.6 billion market in US dollars. In North America, there are 11 million knee patients that can benefit from our solution. And knees for us is just the beginning. Our platform can be used on other joints or to help monitor patients after other outpatient procedures. And there really isn't anything else like it on the market. There are other competitive apps out there. There are Stryker and Zimmer have remote monitoring apps that use big bulky items that are glued to the patient's leg or accelerometers on a phone to try to estimate gait and range of motion, but they can't measure swelling, temperature, and things like we do. The bigger competitors in the physical therapy market are home exercise apps that monitor activity. Again, patients don't see a lot of value. They try them a few times and stop. Our compliance with the system is over 80%, which in this space is phenomenal. And if you look at our really biggest value, it's a very inexpensive temporary tattoo. So our cost per data point, providing clinicians information on swelling, range of motion, and temperature, the cost to do that is very low. So it's an incredibly powerful sales solution. And our go-to model is equally simple. We have my expertise is in orthopedics. I have relationships all across North America with orthopedic surgeons and orthopedic agents. So we sell directly to the orthopedic surgeon. We also have an inside sales team that can sell directly to physical therapy clinics. And our sweet spot are the orthopedic surgeons or clinics that own their physical therapy clinic. And there's a lot of them in the US. We know where they are and we can go get them. We sell, we have two options. We can sell kits to a clinic. What most orthopedic surgeons are choosing to do is a kind of a subscription model, a $40 per patient per month model. And we've really had fantastic traction. Yaniv talked earlier about that's an important measure. We had a really exciting 2023. We beta tested with Dr. Angelini and Dr. Knappe, two very large outpatient knee experts. They are now, we converted them to full-time customers at the end of 2023, and then our biggest champions, and we're now starting to roll out to other clinics. Dr. Nelson's another huge clinic, among other things. The cool part is that orthopedic surgeons really like the concept. It's super easy and they want to use it. We've been limited though, because we only have the patient portal. And so we've really been providing a white glove service to our clinicians. And now to take on other new clinics, we have to build the clinician portal. I'm pleased to announce that we've already got a major investor, Yahara Ventures, who's helping us fund this. That's in production. It'll be in the market. It will be completed in a couple months. We'll be able to really rapidly scale to that $2.2 million forecast we have for this year. And that interest, high interest from orthopedic surgeons, and the value of the technology really will help us scale super fast and hit these numbers. We expect to possibly even achieve cash flow positive status by the end of this year, but we are looking at a slight negative cash flow this year. And of course, profitability as early as next year, which is phenomenal. And this is just the knee module. We've had major requests to develop a tattoo for the foot and ankle for lymphedema. And we also, part of our patents is to use this technology on compression stockings and compression socks, which is crazy exciting. We have a great team. We now have 4 full-time employees, so it's a very low-cost solution. And we do need to expand our team outside of that, but we also have 2 great founders, Dr. Rose and Dr. Chow. I've known 20 years, great people. We've launched dozens of orthopedic products all around the world. And we've now got a full-time CTO, Gary Long, who's an expert in computer vision and an absolute genius. So as I mentioned, we are raising over $1 million, 1 million US as a seed round. We've already secured a third of that. And as I mentioned, all the funds will be going to driving sales, building the clinician portal, completing some important clinical studies or really clinical series that we will use as major marketing and promotional materials for our launches this year at the various orthopedic conferences. And again, our goal is to achieve cash flow positive milestone very soon. Our valuation right now it's a steal. It's $5 million. Again, we are a Canadian company, so we realize that we want to attract U.S. investors. But a typical company like ours in the U.S. would probably be valuated at a $14 million level based off some other websites. And we do see our valuation growing significantly. You can see the orthopedic companies that don't have a remote monitoring solution are already in conversations with us, one of them specifically. There's EMR companies, remote patient monitoring companies, and RTM companies that we're already speaking about to do webinars with, partnerships with on the sales side, and potentially even acquisition. And we've only been on the market a few months. So we really believe with the sales growth we can achieve, and the data, the really cool part about us is the value of our company significantly rises as we build that database of medical grade data. And our goal is to get to that exit in 5 years and a very significant return on investment. That's all I have right now, Hall, so happy to take questions.
Great. Thank you for that. And if anybody in the audience has a question, please post it. Yaniv, if you can join us as well, love to hear your questions. My first question is, can you tell us more about the data play here? How do you plan to monetize it? Who would buy the data and what would they use it for?
Yes, so all around the world right now, they're trying to move to a home care model, helping patients recover from home and validating the cost of care. So Paul, why do you get 15 physical therapy appointments and maybe I need 30, or maybe you only need 2? So how do you validate the care you're getting from a post-op perspective? The payers in the US will be very, very, very interested in us for that.
Great. Yaniv, what's your first question?
Well, first of all, John, thank you for the presentation and congratulations on all the traction that you already had. So
thank you.
I appreciate that. That's great. Have you had any discussions with the potential acquirers, and did you find out what they would need to see from you before they pull that trigger on any acquisition?
Yeah, we are actually speaking to one, and we're under an NDA now. We're actually going to do a lab together and some pilots together. They want to see it firsthand. They want to see it in the lab. They want to see it with clinicians. So that's a couple new clinicians we're actually starting up this month.
And did they want to see a certain amount of traction before they buy? I mean, what do they tell you when you reach what will they consider buying you?
I get a lot from VCs. Hey, well, we want you to get to this level and we'll invest. But with this investor, they're significant, they want to see, they want to do a lab with us, look at the device accuracy, and potentially the quote unquote look at an acquisition if they like what they see.
And can you figure it out from comps what the acquisition might look like?
Well, that's a really good question. I look at Limber Health, which has less than 5 million in sales, just did a round, $11 million round, estimated valuation over 70 million. So that I'm going to be very overzealous here, but that would be a great goal at this stage, this early.
Great. My first question is, John, what's your sales channel to the market? How are you getting this out there?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, right now, it's my relationship with the many orthopedic surgeons I know across the U.S. as well as agents. So I've run a sales force in the U.S. I have orthopedic agents at my disposal. So that's our primary channel right now. And then we're building it in. So we have an inside sales team, and then we're building a marketing campaign to get to physical therapists directly as well.
Great. And from a physician's point of view, how much of a change is this to their normal process, and how much training do they need to be a part of this as well?
That's the best part. It really doesn't change much about what a orthopedic surgeon does today. They have teams that monitor patients now, but they don't have data. So this is going to make them significantly more efficient. Putting the tattoo on after surgery is super easy. The surgeons have no issues doing that whatsoever. And now with the remote monitoring, they can bill for all the activity they were doing for free in the past, and they can do it better. So the educational perspective is minimal for to implement this in a practice.
What have you found navigating the hospital procurement cycle with this? How well is it being picked up, and what challenges have you found?
So I come from that world, so I know the challenges of hospital procurement very, very well. We are in a couple hospitals now. One, the orthopedic surgeon brought it in himself, and that's the best part about the power of the orthopedic surgeon.
Is there any virality here where the users somehow tell other users about it? Is there any way that it propagates by itself, or is it just all brute force?
Yeah, that's what I'm loving about them, starting some of the marketing campaigns, patient testimonials. I mean, I've been in physical therapy waiting rooms where one patient has a tattoo and one doesn't, and the one without the tattoos, why didn't I get that? So absolutely, we need to get this on our website with testimonials. We need to get that out there, promoted at patient engagement events. Really excited about that.
Great. Yaniv, did you have another question? So
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
I'm good.
So
thanks.
my next question is around who is the ideal customer profile? Is this the 5 physician group in the rural area, or is this the 500 physician network in downtown Houston? Who are you finding are the ones that are picking this up first?
Well, again, it's the orthopedic surgeon or group that owns their physical therapy practice. That's the sweet spot. They can bill either under their MPI or under physical therapy plan of care. They're either way they can do it, but when it's integrated like that, it's just fantastic.
And what's the reimbursement situation here? Are you using standard codes, and what kind of reimbursement are you getting off this?
There are specific remote therapeutic monitoring codes specifically for our device. The average reimbursement to a clinician is $325 per patient.
And is there a follow-on product to this, or is there a follow-on use case of the data? What's the next step after this one?
After the knee module, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got surgeon groups begging me to do this for the foot and ankle. That'll be probably where we go next, and we can do foot and ankle monitoring, as well as we can put this on a compression stocking or compression sock and do lower leg lymphedema monitoring. That's for sure where we would go next, those two.
Does that require going back through FDA, or is that same?
No, it doesn't, because our platform is approved as the medical device. Simply adjusting the template, which is the tattoo, does not require going back to FDA.
Okay. And is AI playing a role here, and how so?
Starting to. So Gary, our new CTO, is starting to bring that into play with respect to how we analyze data, how we analyze pictures better, how we automate the right now the patient uses the app to take the picture. We can automate that like a QR code. All that's we're using AI to develop all of that technology.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's the end of the questions we have for now. Thanks so much, John, for a great presentation.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Yaniv. And we'll bring up our next presenter, and we'll kick off here in a moment.
Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Paycall. I am the CEO and co-founder of Avana Health. At Avana, we have developed a fast-acting drug and device treatment system that addresses a critical unmet need in uterine health that affects 1 in 3 women. Abnormal uterine bleeding, or AUB, describes irregularities of blood loss outside of pregnancy involving frequency, regularity, duration, and volume. And because it affects 1 in 3 women, it's a very large multi-billion-dollar market. But as I discuss the opportunity, I'd like to briefly introduce who we are and why we find this work so meaningful. For me personally, I think of my sister Rosie, who's here in white. They struggled with fertility. When she did get pregnant, she developed placenta accreta, and that's where the placenta and uterine wall fuse really tightly together. And unfortunately, at 24 weeks, that ruptured, and they had to perform a life-saving hysterectomy for her, and they couldn't save the twins. And that brought to my attention how many gaps in care there are around uterine health and as it pertains to bleeding. And more specifically, for my co-founder, Dr. John Moorhead, he's an OB-GYN with 40 years experience. He's treated thousands of patients with abnormal uterine bleeding, the condition I first spoke about. And John's wife, Angie, is a nurse practitioner. She specialized in OB-GYN, and she spent 22 years suffering from abnormal uterine bleeding. Now together, they tried for years trying to find the right answer for Angie. And they tried everything. She was on 8 different birth control pills, 3 different intrauterine devices, even surgical ablation. Nothing addressed that chronic condition, nor helped each acute episode. So finally, Angie decided to have a hysterectomy. And yeah, removing the uterus removes the chance of bleeding. It also removes the chance of future childbirth. It removes or increases certain negative health outcomes later in life. So for Angie and John, with their backgrounds and access to care, couldn't find a good solution, and they're not alone, which explains why the US has 33 million cases of abnormal uterine bleeding per year. And further, insurance companies are finding that it's twice as expensive covering women that have abnormal uterine bleeding versus those that don't. Now, again, given the prevalence, it's very high, and it is a multi-billion-dollar opportunity. We analyze data from the CDC, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and individual reimbursement claims data to determine the average number of cases per year, and then multiply that by our net revenue and determine that high-income countries themselves represent a $63 billion addressable market. Our go-to is the United States, representing a $19 billion available market, with emergency rooms as our beachhead, comprising, again, unto itself, a multi-billion-dollar market with an obtainable $600 million in recurring revenue. When we think about abnormal uterine bleeding, and we can see an example on the left, it's important to appreciate it can arise from 9 different causes. These are things you might hear of in the news around endometriosis or fibroids or polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS. And it is a chronic condition, this continuous bleeding, but each occurrence represents an acute episode. And so Ivana takes a very innovative approach that's designed to work regardless of the underlying cause. We're using polydocanol. That's an existing commercially available drug that creates local clotting and stops bleeding in 3 minutes. Now, it's never been used for uterine applications because there wasn't an effective way to deliver it. So we created a proprietary delivery device for polydocanol to quickly stop bleeding. That device is sterile, single use, creates a fluid-tight seal, and delivers the drug at optimal pressure. Not a lot, about like 2 psi. And it's important and worth noting that polydocanol is off patent. So Ivana filed patents to protect the drug and device kit plus the methods of use. By providing a treatment for acute abnormal uterine bleeding to emergency rooms, we're really able to tap into a white space. See, there's no FDA-approved treatment for acute abnormal uterine bleeding. As a result, doctors can only offer off-label treatments. However, none of those are quickly helping patients like Angie. Remember, she just needs the bleeding to stop right now. So our treatment is designed to stop bleeding 100 times faster, last at least 40 times longer, without the use of hormones while preserving fertility. That's just a simple outpatient procedure performed by either nurses or doctors to quickly improve women's quality of life. Now, to get there, we've received quotes from drug and device manufacturers calculating the cost to be $32 per treatment. We plan to sell this to hospitals, and we've done a number of different economic models and see around $700 per kit, which in turn will be reimbursed by payers. Now, for reference, outpatient hospitals currently spend over $4,100 per patient per visit. So that leaves a very strong gross margin, and we've built into our future use of proceeds the ability to do further economic modeling. But we see a lot of room to play while also saving the system money. Now, to date, we've been highly capital efficient, and we've accomplished a great deal. We've raised 2 previous rounds for a total of $610,000. Now, we start with the ability to be so efficient because we're leveraging our competitive advantage compared to, say, a de novo drug program. There's just decades of previous use with this drug. So its mechanism of action, extremely well understood. Safety profile, very well understood, very robust. It's been approved by agencies in the US, Europe, and Japan, very rigorous systems that have approved it for things like treating acute esophageal bleeding, collapsing varicose veins. So once again, we're not asking it to fundamentally do something different. We're just repurposing it for a new indication. Now, to translate that hypothesis into reality, we conducted a preclinical study in a sheep uterine model. The drug stopped bleeding in 3 minutes, while the saline control continued to bleed profusely. The safety profile was consistent with previous use and did no harm to non-bleeding healthy uterine tissue. So excellent. Great safety profile, continuous with previous use. And we then went on to file patents. We have a US non-provisional and global PCT pending, and that protects, again, the drug and the device to applications of use. Assembled just a world-class advisory board that has really accelerated our progress with their insights and connections to their network. They've, fortunately for us, been very engaged because they see the true potential in this white space area, allowing us to develop a robust 5-year clinical and commercial development plan. And we create a prototype of our device, conducted deep market analysis to develop our business models. And we currently have ethics committee approval to start our study in Kenya, working with the country's oldest and leading research hospital and a real thought leader in East Africa, and been involved in many large multinational studies. Now, our core team working on this has a collective 175 years of successful experience. We're comprised of subject matter experts with successful track records in medicine, specifically OBGYN, in life sciences, both preclinical and clinical development, having developed and received approvals for drugs and devices, including blockbuster drugs, working with over 50 countries, big and small pharma, as well as Gates Foundation and WHO, and some serious entrepreneurship bona fides, having raised over 200 million in the past. That advisory board I was talking about is just world-class. Katina Dorton has an investment banking executive background with 50 billion with a B in life sciences M&A deals. Plus, she led multiple companies through IPO as a CFO, again, all within the life sciences space. We also have the leading world expert on abnormal uterine bleeding, Dr. Malcolm Monroe, the leading expert in femtech business intelligence, among other world-class experts in postpartum hemorrhage, something in our pipeline, and clinical quality assurance. Now, right now, we're raising $900,000 to conduct our first study in Kenya. We'll be using this data to gain an IND allowance with the FDA this year. Now, worth noting, we have a lead investor who's syndicating the deal. From commitments and investors soft circled, we're on track to oversubscribe, but we are having room for firm commitments as we close this out. We then plan to raise our Series A to support our phase 2 clinical trials, gain a 510K general purpose device, and file more patents. We foresee an exit opportunity arising for investors in the next 3 years. In reviewing recent deals, 3 acquisitions include comps that sold after their phase 2 studies and for close to $1 billion each. So we plan to follow a similar strategy and position for acquisition following phase 2 and pre-revenue. And just kind of to give a little context there, so it doesn't feel like that's cocktail chatter. We take that very seriously, that future planning and exits. So Dr. Malcolm Monroe, who I mentioned, he's one of the world's leading experts on abnormal uterine bleeding. He has relationships with the chief medical officers, the C-suite at these companies. We've gone through and breaking down their product portfolios, what works, what doesn't. With Katina, she's been there, done that. So she's already helping us fashion that exit strategy, introducing us to investment bankers that are going to help with the Series A raise. So far from just a throwaway idea, we take that exit strategy and how we work backward to continuously develop it very seriously. And as a matter of fact, I'm calling from San Francisco's airport right now. I flew in from meeting with investors yesterday. So now I am going to have my 3rd meeting with one of these potential acquirers. They requested it. And we're just developing that relationship. I ask questions like, what's meaningful data to you? They tell me. The last time we met, the chief scientific officer said, this is exactly in line with what we're interested in. Bring us data. We'd definitely be interested. So again, really very focused on taking a scalable solution and putting it in the hands of a firm that will use their channels to get it out to market right away. So that our vision is to be standard of care for acute abnormal uterine bleeding, and to ensure patients like Angie have the opportunity for better care. And in the long run, to help patients who are experiencing life-threatening uterine bleeding to have better options too. So thank you so much for your time. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Peter. Yaniv, you could join us up here. My first question, Peter, is what's the change in physician behavior if you're using your technology versus what they're currently doing?
Yeah, I mean, great question. We interview a lot of experts in the field, not just casual OBGYNs or emergency department hospitals, but really thought leaders in the space. And they have consistently said, look, we have a few opportunities in front of us to work, but they're slow. The patient spends, up to a day in the emergency department before we release them to have benefit later on. So yes, there is something missing. Yes, we would love to have something faster. The last OBGYN PhD I spoke with that was running a hospital as chief medical officer who oversaw the OBGYN hospital, she just said, I have a whole department of docs dying to use this product if you give it to me. So we, again, fact check that with a lot of our user base.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, Yaniv, I know you have a lot of experience in this area. I really respect it. I was looking up earlier. I also, so any questions you have, I'd love to take them. Anything jump out that you have questions about?
Sure. Have you spoken to the FDA about whether they will or how they will accept data that was produced in Kenya?
At this point, what we've been doing is working closely with our ex-senior FDA officials on our advisory board. One was the senior chief gynecology chief division head, and the other was his counterpart on the drug side. And so we have worked hand in hand with them to sort of assess what's the kind of data your team that you trained is going to want to see when we come back. And we've gone about it that way. And as we start this study, then we'll file for a pre-IND with FDA. We didn't want the appearance with them to sort of look like we were regulatory shopping around for different answers. So we've taken that approach and then we'll work in with it. The other thing I'll add too is with Dr. Monroe, he's so adamant about this white space opportunity, having written the book for Kaiser and how they address it, that we're putting together a publishing strategy with other experts that he knows that I've talked to. And we're going to be publishing a white paper strategy that will take to FDA to really articulate why this is so important to focus on.
It's just that I've seen companies that conducted studies in Europe that the FDA didn't accept the data from. So I just, before you spend all that money, you may want to make sure that it is data well earned.
I totally appreciate
also,
your point.
When you spoke to potential acquirers, obviously this is a repurposed drug and a drug device combo, from what I understand, right? The appetite usually for repurposed drugs is fairly low from acquirers. What did you get from the potential acquirer in terms of that combo, and how much they give you an idea that they would, be interested in acquiring you for?
That has not been a concern that they have raised, in the sense that they know we have IP patent protection. They know that we have some ideas to optimize the molecule for a generation 2 device treatment system. And I was speaking with the former head of Stryker's IP strategy and business development, who personally knows now the CEO of Hologics. He was the CEO of Stryker, Hologics being the largest acquirer in women's health femtech products. And I asked him that very same question. What's our vulnerability here? What should we be doing to mitigate? And he just said, if your patents protect the general idea, that's all they're going to care about. And maybe a longer conversation for another day, we can talk through that IP strategy and how that moat works, how we're layering in other patents around it to strengthen it for generation 2 devices that would be advantageous to the acquirer. But so far, that has not been an issue when talking to them about it.
Thank you.
Great. We're at the end of our time. Yeah. Thanks so much, Peter, for a great presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate the questions. Yaniv, pleasure.
All right, thanks.
Pleasure.
And now we'll bring up our final presenter for today. And with that, here's Buddy Lyons of Intact. Buddy, thank you for joining us. Go ahead.
Hi, all. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Looking forward to your pitch today. We see your
Great.
slides.
You see the slides?
Yes, they're up.
All right, great. Thank you. I'm Buddy Lyons. I'm the CEO of Intact Medical, and we make acoustic wearables for predictive medicine. We just launched our first product in 2023 with 20 sales reps into a $4 billion market, predicting postoperative ileus and major abdominal surgery. We expect to be in revenue in the first half of this year and expecting about 5 to 10 million in revenue in 2024. And a 510K submission for the second generation product, Provis AI Gut, off of our Provis AI platform, is expected in 2025. The big news really is this: middle of last month, we announced results of a study out of our Provis AI acoustic platform in heart and lung, which validates it as a rapid and repeatable development platform and strongly supports an RPM predictive wearable in asthma and COPD, which overcomes some of the current issues there in doing RPM for those types of patients. We have a potential 510(k) submission in those areas in 2025. The current financing is that we have a $2.5 million note out there right now. We've already got almost over $2 million committed, planning on closing that around the end of the month. And that will be converted into a price round later in 2024, determined by Previs EA revenue, and the capital needed for a Previs AI lung device. But the first thing that we are addressing is a critical need for something in postoperative ileus, which occurs in 6.3 million U.S. major abdominal surgeries. It's acute paralysis of the GI tract that begins 2 to 10 days after surgery. It's the most common complication in up to 30% of patients. It's the leading cause of readmission at over 20%. And it's the leading cause of prolonged length of stay of 3 to 5 days. The problem right now is that at-risk patients cannot be identified. And so the current post-op care protocols are reactive, and they either force a high readmission rate or prolonged length of stay. In more traditional types of surgery, where they do delayed oral refeeding, they don't feed you until they believe GI function has returned to normal. You do get almost zero readmissions, but you're holding, up to 80% of your cases 3 to 5 days longer than necessary. And in a Medicare situation, you're losing $11,000 per case. And things like enhanced recovery after surgery protocols, where they do early oral refeeding on the day of surgery and early discharge. The advantage is you've got a lower length of stay of about 5 days, but you've got a readmission rate of 20%, and you're still losing money. None of this is working very well at all for patients, providers, hospitals, or payers, or anyone. Previs EA is precision medicine. It proactively identifies at-risk patients, which enables personalized post-op care. Very simple to use. You place it on the patient with an hour of surgery on any quadrant of the abdomen. It quantifies an acoustic biomarker that we call MH4, and MH4 is highly correlated with the development of a postoperative ileus. And at post-op hour 12, it gives the prediction as to whether or not the patient will develop that. It's highly sensitive at about 86% with a negative predictive value of 95%. What this means is personalizing post-op care. Low-risk patients can undergo early oral refeeding and early discharge, reducing the length of stay. High-risk patients you can do delayed oral refeeding, delayed discharge, reducing the readmissions. You're increasing patient safety because you're not sending them home too early and making them susceptible to things like dehydration and acute kidney injury and aspiration pneumonia at home. And you're turning some of those losses that you're getting in those surgeries into profits in the fixed payment system. The way we demonstrate this to hospitals is based on, we compare them to other hospitals within their case mix index, or how difficult the cases are that they do. In this particular case right here, this hospital has a length of stay, an average length of stay amongst this population of almost 10 days, which is kind of abysmal, actually. We can help them reduce length of stay by about 4 days, reduce their readmissions by 43%, and have a almost $10 million budget impact. And this is an intestinal surgery alone. This is not all of major abdominal. This is just intestinal surgery. There are generally 5 to 7 times more major abdominal surgeries than intestinal surgeries in a hospital. So this number could be as much as $50 to $70 million in positive budget impact with better patient outcomes. This is where we think the device is really going to shine. We were just at the American Society of Colon and Rectal Surgeons last June, and there's a huge resurgence of interest in doing ambulatory colectomy with 1-day stay. The inability to predict POI is the thing that has limited this so far. We only do about less than 2% of cases with 1-day stay in the U.S. right now. But Previs EA has a 95% negative predictive value, saying that if the device says that the patient's not at risk, it's correct 95% of the time, so it becomes indispensable in the discharge decision. Obviously, you can reduce length of stay by 3 to 7 days. You can save greater than $10,000 per case. And we know that patients also do recover better at home. So we think this is going to be a major driver. We're putting together a nationwide quality improvement collaborative amongst a number of institutions in the U.S. right now who are interested in pursuing this as standard of care at their facilities. The market's quite large. U.S. 6.3 million surgeries, about a $4 billion market. UK about a $4 billion market. Rest of the world we don't have great data on, but we know it's very, very large. The revenue model is right now is a single-use device that's moving toward a multi-use device within 12 months. So we can reuse these devices. We know at least 30 times. It could be as many as 60 times. The gross margins are about 75% as a single use and over 95% as a multi-use device. It's sold directly to hospitals with sales reps directly engaging surgeon champions and chief medical officers, chief quality officers, and others who are interested in quality metrics for patients. The average selling price is $600, and it provides a greater than 10 times ROI for a hospital. Driving adoption in this year and next year really is about expanding reps from 20 to 32 reps by the end of this year. The rollout of the Ambulatory Colectomy Quality Improvement Collaborative, which we haven't even rolled it out yet. We've got 6 or 8 sites that are jumping all over to do this. And the traction we've got so far, we do expect revenue in this first half of the year. We've got 6 hospital systems representing 50 hospitals who are going through various stages of value committee right now. All 8 clinical sites, we have a clinical trial that will end at the end of this quarter. All of those sites are interested in using the device in their facilities as well. This is our domain expertise in acoustics led us to this, which is Previs AI, which is a rapid development acoustic IoT wearables platform from where Previs AI got that 2nd generation product and post-operative ileus is coming. And we'll file that 510(k) in 2025. It is a more accurate device because we can handle ambient noise better with AI algorithms in the cloud. It is machine learning, so we get continuously improved performance. And the cost of goods is half that of a Previs EA. But equally as important is in the middle of last month, we released that data that showed that it is a platform that can do rapid and repeatable development. We can parse heart and lung sounds from one single recording, and it's very tight audio correlation to clinical measures of performance, which leads us, the heart analysis is continuing, but in Previs AI lung, it strongly supports the rapid development of a wearable RPM for prediction in asthma and COPD. We believe we can do a 510(k) in 2025. Very large markets with 12.5 million asthma patients, 15 million COPD patients. The driver here really is the non-compliance of patients that is the reason they end up in the ER. They're supposed to blow in the spirometer 6 or 8 times a day. Nobody does that. We can do continuous monitoring for them so they don't have to do that, and let them know ahead of time if say an asthma patient is going to have a bronchospasm, so they can take their medications, call their physicians or whatever it is their physicians prescribe, and reimbursement is already in place for that. But we're very well-rounded management team, and Dr. John Carmel is really the inventor of this technologies. Operational board members here who have many exits under their belts with large strategics. And we have a sales management team, a lot of experience. Our contract sales organization is Clinical Technologies, Inc. They cover 20 Midwestern states for us. We're also a major investor in NTAC because they believe we're going to change major abdominal surgery. And then we have supplemented with 1099 reps across the country. So we're highly capital efficient. We developed Previs EA from an idea on a piece of paper through clearance with the FDA in total corporate expenses of $3.75 million. Right now, that the convertible that we have going on, we've got $2 million already done, and we're doing 2.5. And that's going to support Previs EA revenue and expansion in 2024, a completion of a price round, data from the QI collaborative, which will be very important for more marketing, and a Previs AI prototype. And then in 2025, after the price round is done, Previs AI gut submissions, a CE mark in Europe, Previs AI lung submissions. And we believe in that time we'll be having exit discussions with strategics. That is the NTAC story. What questions can I answer for you?
Great. Thanks, buddy. Yaniv, if you have any questions, please join us. My first question is around the sales cycle. When you go to a hospital and start this process, how long from the start till it's actually installed, being used, given the procurement cycle they have to go through?
Yeah, this is one of the reasons that we launched it last week. First of all, when you launch a product in a very novel space like ours, nobody's ever done this before. And you have to get them comfortable that, that you've got a value proposition. But typically, Hall, it's about 6 months. It's really extended after COVID. But fortunately, we're well into a lot of these systems that I showed you earlier, into these hospital systems, which is why we believe that we'll be in revenue in the first half of this year. And the momentum is building, weekly as we continue to get through hospitals. So we're very bullish on that and think that it should be a good year. And it's a little early to tell right now because it is such a novel product, but we believe we'll do 5 to 10 million this year and as much as 40 million next year.
You get any pull from value-based healthcare users, people that are applying value-based healthcare to their system? Is that an extra benefit?
Yeah,
or no?
that's actually a lot of it, and that's a lot of it about what has to do with ambulatory colectomy. Is that we know that this is a very safe thing to do. The problem is that if you don't know what patients are going to have a postoperative ileus, you're going to have a 30% readmission rate on your hands, right? We know that those patients also recover better at home, and that's one of the reasons that not only both physicians and administrators are really the resurgence of interest in that. It is better for your patient if you can send them home. They do recover better, and it is much less costly than keeping them in the hospital for 8 days or something like that. So that's really a lot of the argument is around value-based care, Hall.
Okay, great. Yaniv?
I'm wondering about to what extent can this inform treatment? To what extent does the FDA allow physicians to rely on this, physicians, hospitals to rely on this? And to what extent the potential adopters will be relying on it?
For a treatment? Is that what you said, Yaniv?
Well, you're basically deciding who stays and who leaves and who is fed and who is not, right? So
yeah, right.
You're deciding standard of care.
Right, I hear you. It's really not, the way the label is in the clearance is that decision is really basically still on the physician. We're providing them with a piece of information, right, that demonstrates very high sensitivity, very high negative predictive value. There are other things that could keep a patient in a hospital if they had certain comorbidities and those kinds of things, and those things that a physician has to take into account. But the decision to discharge, to when to refeed and when to refeed the patient and when to discharge the patient really is on the physician, not on the device itself. We're just providing them with this piece of information that says, for this specific thing, which happens to be the leading, the leading complication, this patient is not at risk. But there are other factors that the physician has to take into account to make that decision. Now, most of the time they would go with the device, obviously, but there will be times when other factors are in play for the individual patients that would keep them from discharging, even if there was a low-risk patient.
Got it. Thank you.
Has there been any pushback from physicians on this so far? And if so, in what place?
They're not really pushback on physicians. We've had a small number of hospitals who said, okay, show me length of stay data. It makes a lot of logical sense, right? But we've had a lot of people come in here and tell us, hey, we can do this for you. And that really hasn't been widespread, actually. But that's another reasons that the ambulatory colectomy quality improvement collaborative is so important. This is a very quick thing to do. These hospitals only be doing 25 or 30 patients. And so we'll be generating that length of stay data and that readmission data to be able to go to those hospitals who have shown that resistance to provide that for them and give them that information. And that's one of the reasons we're doing this.
Okay, great. That's it for my questions. I want to thank you, buddy, for your presentation today. I want to thank Yaniv for joining us and giving a great presentation at the beginning and also joining us here on the question panel as well. For those in the audience, we'll be back next week for another presentation on the 10 Quick Pitch, more technology-based deals. And then we'll be back, and we are going to be starting a hybrid event series soon. On February 7th, we'll kick it off in Austin at the Capitol Factory, where we're going to actually have in-person pitches along with an online Zoom component that goes with it. This series is going to go around the country: Dallas, Albuquerque, Southern California, Northern California, Seattle, Chicago, New York, looking to go to Boston, and then on around to Charleston, Florida, and back to Houston. So it's a 12-month tour around the country where we're going to be doing this. We'll have a series of family office panels as well as pitch events, as well as investor appreciation lunches. So looking forward to catching up with you guys when we get to your city. Hope to meet you in person when we get there. With that, we'll go ahead and close it out for today. Any final words there, Yaniv?
Thank you so much for having me. Great presentation. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, and thank you guys in the audience. With that, we'll wrap it up, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Hal.
Thanks.